Ni hao. Welcome to Australia, and it is my honour to be working with you. I love considering what is going to happen to the future of education, and there are many different factors that are going to influence what happens up ahead. So, for example, in the next 12 years, we're going to need around an extra 25 million teachers on the planet, at least 3 million new ones, and then another 22 million to replace people who are going to retire. I will talk about it soon, but technology has the ability to deliver almost anything that we need in terms of future education. And our young people today are going to face a future that is dramatically different when it comes to work. Now, in spite of all of that, can I point out that I think the future is likely to be extraordinary? And I quite get bored with people who don't think it is going to be. I put out a booklet last year through Wiley and Sons called The Next Generation. And one of my points is that this is truly the best time in human history to be alive. Now, it's not a perfect world. In fact, I call it a beautiful mess. But in spite of all that, I can tell you most things are better than they used to be on this planet. I think we need more of what is called realistic optimism in the world, and especially in education too. It doesn't mean that we are 100% optimistic, but we are 90% optimistic. So we make an effort to look for the best that is available on the planet. Now, when it comes to education, I sometimes talk about what is called emergent education. And it is talking about all of the different things that are going to influence education very soon. One will be the availability of learning platforms that are truly global, such as edX and many others that can deliver at a very cheap price to many people at once. I think we're going to have to reconsider what we call teachers. I would prefer to call them learning designers. To me now, a great teacher is someone who makes use of all the different technologies and resources available on the planet and then create great learning from that. We are not going to easily have accreditation in the future the way that we've had it in the past. The 6-year degree will be valid for a long time yet, though I think there are many things still to happen with that one, such as what is called tokenization, where you actually do a very short course and you do a series of them through your whole life. Increasingly, education is going to personalize the learning, especially with the technology. And that will partly be because of what we call intelligent assistance. It's an advanced form of Siri that can work one-on-one with a child. There are going to be transformations in work, as I mentioned before, very different world up ahead. And especially, I think we're going to see more and more of what we call lifelong learning passports. Now, if you can see this particular image here, it gives an indication of how learning will need to be provided in the future. So along the bottom are the number of years of someone's life, 25 years old, 50, and so on. The white represents the way that education is delivered now. So you begin in early years of primary, through to secondary, perhaps to university study, and then it dies down dramatically after you leave university and go out into work. In the future, it is going to be more like the blue. Almost from birth, learning will be dramatically high. It will continue up through school, die down just a little bit, but will continue on when you retire and into the time when you die. We are going to need to have education systems that can give support to that learning continuously through life. Keep in mind that there is a blind spot when it comes to how we see the future. The reality is that most changes are exponential, and there are some dramatic changes coming with concepts like machine learning, where machines can learn by themselves and improve. We will increasingly see robot teachers, and there are already some available. The Internet of Things is when everything is connected. So we will be able to have an outline of every child, taking into account all of the technology that gives us indications of what they can and can't do. And especially when we reach machine consciousness, where they can in fact think, which is probably 20 years away, we are going to see some very interesting things happening in classrooms. I read an article recently that said that within 30 years, we may not even be able to need to talk with each other, but instead we will wear a special brain cap that will allow us to send our thoughts to each other. Now, at that point, a lot of things are going to dramatically change in education. In fact, the iPhone 25 is probably going to be a brain implant, and just by thinking, you will be able to transfer your thoughts to someone else. That's the sort of world we've got coming up. Now, here are some scenarios for the future of education on a sort of a timeline. The first one is now. I'll call it the status quo. 10 to 13 years of education and more study, 1 or 2 pathways for every student, whether they do university or something else, and probably permanent lifetime employment for teachers. We also are already in the scenario too, but increasingly in the next couple of years, we'll see more flexible learning where we combine online and offline. We'll see more personalised pathways. We're going to focus more on what is called JIT learning, which is just-in-time learning. Too much education in the past has been based upon just-in-case learning. Just-in-time is done at the time to suit the circumstances for the learner. The third scenario, which is perhaps 3 to 5 years away, is where we add to the teaching tasks with high technology, such as the new glasses being developed by Google and Apple and Microsoft and others that will allow us to look at a child's face, and immediately in the left side we will see all of the data on that child, and on the right side we will then see suggestions on how to give support to them that are given by all sorts of advanced educators around the world. We'll definitely see more intelligent assistants, and I believe that organisations like Google are going to seriously consider how they can offer schooling to people all over the world. 10 or more years from now, I believe we'll see a new learning narrative. This will be in a society that perhaps is work less, where people are working less, and even a wealthless society where we don't need as much money because of 3D and 4D printing making most products for very little money. Universal basic incomes might become the norm around the world. School may not be an actual place, but the learning will mainly be provided by artificial intelligence generally, and also there's intelligent assistants that I mentioned before. So then I think to myself, how do we best prepare children for this up ahead? And the main answer given by most people is that we need to think of the capabilities they will need. It's all very well to teach them lots of knowledge, and that is still important. Curriculum is vital, but it's what underpins that curriculum that really matters. So they are going to need to be more adaptive and agile. I believe that empathy will become one of the biggest capabilities in the 21st century. Children will need to know how to inquire and to develop their own inquiry design when they need to learn something new. I am more and more convinced that entrepreneurship is one of the most important capabilities we can teach young people. So in fact, my theory is that we need this equation for learning up ahead. It is HI plus AI plus EI. HI stands for human intelligence, AI for artificial intelligence, and EI for emotional intelligence. With HI, we're talking things like this. We're talking the quality of thinking and creativity and the inquiry I just mentioned and the entrepreneurialism. We're talking young people who know how to self-regulate their thinking and their emotions so they are more in control of their thinking. Now, there are many ways of providing this HI. I often work with groups around the world on many different ways of generating this human intelligence in classrooms by using one-on-one learning, by using problem-based learning and project-based learning. Here are 2 for now that I believe are really important. One is design thinking. And it is where a young person knows how to create a design to create a solution to any particular issue that they have in front of them at the time. The first is generally when they empathize with the organization or the group of people they're trying to support. Then they define new ideas that resolve whatever that issue is. Then they ideate, they come up with new ideas in terms of how to solve it. Then they develop a first draft or a prototype, and then they test that first draft. And then they keep going until they've designed a new process to, create a solution to that issue. That's one important thing we could do. Another is to help young people learn how to inquire. And generally we do this with a series of questions. I would want every young person on the planet who leaves primary school to be able to use inquiry in anything in their life. So if they're at home on a weekend and they need to develop an inquiry on something new, they know the questions they can go through. And they are generally questions like this. What actually is it that I want to find out? And what do I already know about this? And what are the questions I need to address? And what learning will I do to find answers to those questions? And then later on they ask themselves, given my learning up to now, what more questions do I want to ask? And at the end they go, what will I do with what I want to find out? Inquiry is very powerful. The second part of the equation is artificial intelligence, and this is where we use robotics and we can use inquiry design, and especially what we call digital pedagogy. It is the use of advanced learning with digital systems. One of the better frameworks I have seen recently is this one. coming from this book by Sonny Magana. Now, his claim is that back in the 1990s, we focused in on the translational framework, which is where we automated the learning so that we didn't have to do it ourselves as humans, but simply set it up as a process for young people to have to do without us imposing on them. And the other one was that we could increase the consumption of the learning just by giving them endless, apps or programs to actually use on a screen. In the last 10 years, we've focused more on transformation elements where young people know how to produce something new, such as a video to demonstrate their understanding on something, and also to learn how to contribute to their own country or the world in general by connecting with special interest groups or social interest groups to actually help them to advance their contribution to the planet. Now, this guy is talking about what he calls transcendent, and he has two frameworks to it. One is inquiry design. And so that is where a 12-year-old knows how to design her or his own inquiry so that they can learn something really comprehensively. And the other one is what we call social entrepreneurship. So it is a combination of being an entrepreneur and a philanthropist who knows how to set up a small business to raise money to actually give support to a social justice cause. If I had my way, we would create a world that has a combination of young people who are entrepreneurs and philanthropists. And so that fits really well with what he is talking about. Now, when it comes to the delivery of learning by artificial intelligence, we have many different ways of doing it. Increasingly, we are seeing telepresence teachers around the world. So we can put something like an iPad in this device, and it can then be moved anywhere else on the planet. So we could have teachers in China teaching children in Australia, or teachers in America teaching children in Europe by simply sitting down in front of a screen and moving this device around in a classroom somewhere else. We increasingly are seeing advanced translation devices, and they are now becoming very effective, where they can instantly translate something that someone is saying into at least 100 different languages. I think that this technology is going to become massive, and it's called augmented technology. And it is where we have an augmented reality with using something like these glasses, and they are going to transform the way learning is delivered. So for example, by putting on these glasses, you could do something like take an entire car motor apart without even knowing how to do it, because the glasses will stand you in front of the real motor, and as you look at the motor, the glasses will show you the first step to do, which is to, for example, pick up a screwdriver and undo a particular screw. You then do it in real life. The glasses then show you step 2 and you do it, and then they show you step 3, and that keeps going for the 500 steps of how to take the motor apart. We will be able to do that with almost any skill we need to teach young people. So we don't have to spend years anymore teaching them the skill. Instead, they put on the glasses and they can actually do it right away. Robots definitely will be more involved in classrooms. This robot called Now is already used quite a bit around the world, and another one called Pepper is very prevalent as well. So for example, when we want to support a child who needs to do lots of exercises, we just get this robot to do them, and the child will almost without exception happily do the same set of exercises. More and more people are talking about whether artificial intelligence can actually teach. Well, in fact, it already can. It is being used quite extensively. Especially when we talk about a concept called learning analytics, which allows us to map out precisely what a child can do and then to deliver by video online in some form the way that they can actually do the learning. So there's some artificial intelligence options for you. And here's the last intelligence, emotional intelligence. This one is just as important as anything else. And in fact, some people are saying it could become the most important, because the artificial intelligence can do a lot of the human activities we've previously done, such as being able to be an accountant or a lawyer or an engineer or even a teacher. So what becomes more important is our ability to connect with other people. And so this is where we have the initiative to do things, and we know how to communicate properly with other people, and we know how to work with them in collaboration, and especially we are really empathic with them. My contention is that empathy will become one of the most critical 21st century capabilities. I think it is going to become very important. And I'm seeing it in all sorts of interesting ways. One of my favorite apps is one called Be My Eyes, and this is for people who are blind. And the idea is this. Anyone can download the app for free, and it is to support people who cannot see at all, or they have very limited vision. Now, there are hundreds of thousands of people around the world who are sighted, who are set up to support people here. Now, if, for example, someone is blind and they're trying to look at the instructions on a manual and they can't see them, they just turn on this app on their phone, and it goes and finds one of those hundreds of thousands of people who support them, and they can then look on their phone and then give them ideas on what they can see and help them out, being able to read it out for them. It is a beautiful app, and we could not have done that 20 years ago without the advanced technology we have now. And there are millions of those types of apps and support systems around. Increasingly, I find that while a lot of people talk about how robots are going to take over, a lot of other people are talking about how humans are still going to be necessary. And in fact, the advanced countries in 20 years from now are going to be the ones who do two things. One is that they make use of the advanced technologies, but the other is that they make use of their amazing people, their population, because it's still going to be humans who drive technology and education and business in the future. So as I'm wrapping up here, can I let you know that if you wish, you can look further at my work at tonyryan.com.au, or even order my book if you wish as well. When it comes to education and this emergent education, it's an exciting world up ahead. It is truly going to be amazing. And can I make one final point? Here is the reality. We can create the future of education ourselves. It is not just something that is going to happen to us, it is something we create. So I wish you every blessing for the future of your education system, and I hope that it is amazing. Thank you very much for your time.